Okay, so then this is just going over what we just said. That last bullet, though, like the hummingbirds, there's different ways to accomplish similar stuff. That we've actually found some photosynthetic bacteria. They don't use water, they use sulfuric hydrogen sulfide gas, kind of crazy, to get their hydrogens. Then they're able to make ATPs, and then they're able to make sugars. You don't need to know it, but I just want to mention to you. Okay, the second part of photosynthesis is called the Calvin cycle. Calvin, because the dude that discovered it is named Dr. Calvin. Okay? Now, what happens here? Fine, we got water, we got ATPs being made. Now we have ATPs and those NADPHs. That they are storing energy. Well, they're not going to store it. They're going to transfer that energy to build what? What must happen? What does photosynthesis build? Glucose, food. So here it is. You do not need to memorize it. You just need to know that what comes into this one and what comes out. So what comes in? Look at this complex cycle. No, water was used in the other spot. What? Carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is what builds the what? Yeah, because it's made out of carbon, right? Okay, now what makes these reactions happen? ATPs and NADPHs. Weren't these made from the light-dependent reaction before? Yeah. So two-step process, simplified. It's good enough for us. Okay? So you got light-dependent reactions, and then you have what? Calvin cycle, and you got your sugar. Okay? All right. Now this last section, this other section in your book has to do with what increases photosynthesis or decreases photosynthesis. So think about that. Yeah, okay, so light. You guys want to talk about light first? So check this graph out. You need to be able to read these graphs and use these graphs. Okay? So you have increasing light intensity on the bottom and increasing rate of photosynthesis. So how are we going to measure that? Now this is important because we had a really cool lab. Think about this. How can we measure if photosynthesis is occurring? What can we collect? What?
Water.
Okay, we could potentially measure how much glucose is being made. We could also measure how much oxygen is being made. It's easy to measure oxygen. It's a gas, right? We could collect it. Okay, anyway, as light increases, does photosynthesis increase? Yes. To a certain, yeah, called the saturation point. We can only make those reactions happen to a certain level, right? It kind of reminds me if you've ever had like if you're getting a flashlight shined in your eyes, does it matter if I'm here or if I'm here?
No.
Not really. It's blasting you either way, right? So it can only work so fast. Okay, the next one. What do you think about temperature? Do you think temperature can affect the rate of photosynthesis?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think? Is it better to be hot, cold, in between? Okay, so let's see. What is it? It's in between, a bell curve. Okay? Now, like the hummingbird, do you think there's some plants that are more adapted to be colder or hotter? Absolutely. They'll have adaptations that help them, but in general, room temperature's nice. It's in your book. I do want you guys to read the whole chapter, but I'm not going to make you memorize anything about it. Okay, I'm going too fast. Okay, so now one of the really big topics here, okay, climate stuff. So do plants influence our climate? Yes, they're pumping oxygen in like crazy. There wasn't always plants and there wasn't always organisms that were doing photosynthesis on Earth. Next semester we'll get to the history of the Earth and how the climate has changed. Okay? But carbon dioxide content for the atmosphere has been steadily increasing since the 1800s. And this correlates to Industrial Revolution stuff. Yes, it can go in ups and downs. You remember the presentation we went to? It is increasing at an alarming rate, and that's going to affect life. Hey, Mr. Rosedeb. Okay, so a little bit here then. Regular photosynthesis, if you saw it in the Calvin cycle, it actually made a C3. It made a half of a sugar, and you get the two C3s together, and now you have a glucose. There are some other adaptations, other ways of doing this, and you just need to know they exist, okay? There's some plants that actually make a 4-carbon sugar. There's this one we call a CAM pathway, and these are special adaptations where there is a lot of oxygen in the air in these environments, or it has to do with drought-resistant plants, plants that don't have enough water. Remember how we have to keep that stomate open, or we have to open it to get gas exchange? But if we're not keeping it open because we're losing water, right, they have to be better adapted, kind of like the hummingbirds had to be better adapted to get oxygen. Okay, we're going to do a teeny bit here on respiration, and then we'll stop for today. But hey, that's it on 4. That was all. Okay? So this is much more focused, what you need to know. Okay? So a teeny, let's see here, actually. Let's actually stop here.